Take that shirt off now. Hurry, Mr. Harrington. Take it off now, Annie shouted, rushing straight toward him. Before anyone in the room could understand what was happening, Annie Carter had reached William Harrington. She grabbed the front of his white shirt with both hands and pulled hard. The sharp sound of tearing fabric cut through the room, slicing through the music and the clinking of glasses. William's eyes widened. The wine glass slipped from his hand and fell onto the carpet with a heavy thud. Annie pulled again, almost desperately, ripping the shirt away from his shoulders before throwing it aside. "What the hell is this?" William shouted. "Annie, what are you doing?" A shrill scream rang out near the snack table. "Mr. Harrington," Linda Pierce, his secretary, cried. "She tore your shirt. Annie just tore Mr. Harrington's shirt." 40 people stood beneath the warm golden lights of the executive office, all of them staring in stunned silence. William's face turned red, first from anger, then from embarrassment. He quickly folded his arms across his chest and turned halfway away to avoid the guest's eyes. "Get me a jacket," he snapped. "Now." Annie stood in front of him, gasping for breath. Her hands were still trembling, not because she regretted what she had done, but because she understood that she had just done something no one in that room would easily forgive. Linda hurried forward, holding a suit jacket that had been folded neatly over the back of a chair. "Sir, here," she said, her voice trembling too. "Please." William snatched the jacket and pulled it tightly around himself. Robert Langford, the senior executive who had stood beside William for years, quickly pushed through the crowd. On his face was the perfect look of concern from a loyal right-hand man, but Annie saw it. Robert's eyes flicked quickly toward the torn shirt lying near the side table, only once, very briefly. Then he immediately turned his attention back to William. "William, are you hurt?" Robert asked, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "Did she scratch you? Was she holding anything?" "I'm fine," William said, his voice still full of anger. "But I want to know why my intern just attacked me in front of my staff." Robert turned to Annie. The concern on his face disappeared as quickly as a mask being removed. "What is wrong with you?" he asked. His voice was low and controlled, but cold enough to make several people unconsciously step back. "Do you understand what you just did? This is the chairman of the company. You cannot run across a room and tear a man's clothes off just to get attention." "I did not do it for attention," Annie said. "Then why?" William demanded. "Start talking." Annie swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight, but she forced herself to say the words. "There was powder on that shirt." Robert stared at her for half a second. Then he clapped twice, slowly and mockingly. "So," he said, letting out a short laugh. "When did this begin, Annie?" Annie frowned. "When did what begin?" "This." Robert pointed at her, then at the torn shirt. "These strange thoughts, these little stories building themselves inside your head. I thought you were a normal young woman, quiet, hard-working, maybe a little nervous because of your internship. But this?" He shook his head, lowering his voice as if he pitied her. "This is no longer normal. This is a breakdown." Annie's face tightened. "You are the one with the problem, Robert. Don't stand here pretending to be innocent." Linda drew in a quiet breath. Robert's eyebrows lifted, as though Annie had just proven his point for him. "Listen to yourself." "I heard you very clearly," Annie replied. "In the storage room." Robert took one step closer. "Careful." "No," Annie said. "You cannot scare me anymore." William looked back and forth between them, the jacket still pressed against his bare chest. "What storage room?" Robert answered before Annie could speak. "William, she is trying to save herself. She knows she crossed a line, and now she is inventing a story dramatic enough to make us hesitate." "I am not inventing anything," Annie said. "That shirt had fluorescent powder on it." Robert gave a dry laugh. "Fluorescent powder." He repeated the words slowly, as if he wanted the whole room to hear how ridiculous they sounded. "Did you hear that, William? She tore your shirt in front of the entire leadership team. And now she wants us to believe some story about glowing powder." Annie pointed toward the shirt. "Don't touch it." Robert turned, saw the torn white shirt lying near the side table, and bent down to pick it up. Annie lunged forward a step. "No." Robert stopped, one hand already holding half of the shirt. He slowly turned his head. "What now?" "Put it down," Annie said. "You are trying to destroy evidence." Robert straightened, the torn shirt dangling from his hand. "Evidence?" "Yes." "Annie," he said, his voice turning sharp. "What performance are you putting on now? You put that powder on him," she said, "after you deliberately spilled wine on Mr. Harrington's suit jacket. You gave him this shirt, waited for him to change, then patted his chest and shoulder as if you were joking with him. That was how you marked him. Robert's face hardened. That is a very serious accusation. I know. You are an 18-year-old intern, and you are a traitor who thought no one heard him. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Robert spoke through clenched teeth. You were hired to help prepare napkins, drinks, and the guest list. Not to make baseless accusations against senior executives, just because you overheard a few things you were not capable of understanding. I understood enough, Annie said. You and Victor Hale were in the storage room. You said that if Mr. Harrington had an accident tonight, you would become interim chief by morning. You said you would take control of the company before anyone could stop you. William's expression changed. Victor Hale? Robert immediately turned to him. William, come on. You know Victor and I have business discussions. Maybe she overheard a few words from a call and twisted them into this fantasy. It wasn't a call, Annie said. It was downstairs in the storage room. You were standing beside the shelves. Victor handed you something. You talked about the lights. 10 minutes. You said 10 minutes would be enough. Linda covered her mouth with one hand. William looked at Robert. What is she talking about? Robert was still holding the torn shirt. Annie saw his fingers tighten around the fabric. Put the shirt down, she said again. Robert looked at her as if she had insulted the entire room. You have no authority here. No, Annie said. But I know when a man is trying to hide what he has done. Robert threw the shirt onto a nearby chair instead of putting it back where it had been. Annie noticed the change, but she did not move toward it. William's voice carried across the room. Robert, answer me. Robert turned to him with a wounded expression. After all these years, are you really standing here, wrapped in a jacket in front of your employees, questioning me because of a panicked intern? Annie reached into her coat pocket, then she pulled out a clear plastic bag. Inside was a small bottle with a black cap. Robert stopped talking. Robert's eyes were fixed on the plastic bag in Annie's hand. William had seen it. But for the first few seconds, he still did not know what to make of it. What is that? William asked. Annie held the bag with both hands, so carefully that she was almost stiff. She did not want anyone to be able to say she had touched, switched, or altered anything inside it. Fluorescent powder, she said. The thing he dropped in the storage room after talking to Victor Hale. Robert quickly regained his composure. He let out a short laugh and turned toward the others, as if trying to pull the entire room onto his side. A bottle of powder, he said. That is your evidence? Not just the bottle, Annie replied. It is where I found it. It is what I heard. It is what you did to Mr. Harrington's shirt. William's jaw tightened. He was still holding the jacket tightly against his chest. He was still embarrassed, still angry, and more than anything, still unable to accept that all of this had just happened inside his own office. Annie, he said slowly, listen to me carefully. You just tore my shirt in front of my entire staff. You are accusing one of my most senior executives of plotting to harm me. You had better be absolutely sure about this. I am sure, sir. No, Robert cut in at once. She is not sure. She is frightened, and now she is trying to turn that fear into a story. Annie looked straight at him. You were calmer in the storage room. William pointed toward the conference table. Put the bag down. Annie did so immediately. Step back. She stepped back. Robert gave a small nod, as if William had finally come to his senses. Good, he said. Now call building security. Have her escorted out, and we can handle this privately. No one is being escorted out yet, William said. Robert's smile faded. William, I said not yet. That sentence gave Annie a very fragile sliver of hope. But William's eyes were still cold when he looked at her. He did not believe her yet. He was only beginning to doubt. William turned to his secretary. Linda, call the facilities manager up here. Linda nodded quickly and immediately reached for the phone. Robert stepped closer. Facilities? What for? The lights, Annie said. Ask who scheduled the lights to go out for 10 minutes. William looked back at her. You said 10 minutes? That is what he said downstairs. Robert shook his head and gave a cold laugh. This is ridiculous. The lighting was part of tonight's tribute. Everyone knows that. No, Annie said. Everyone knew there would be a tribute slideshow. No one knew the lights would be turned off completely for 10 minutes. Linda lowered the phone slightly, her expression changing. Mr. Harrington, she said. I did not approve a 10-minute blackout. I only approved a 2-minute slideshow with dimmed lighting. not a full blackout. William's eyes moved to Robert. Robert did not flinch. Then someone on the technical team made a mistake. That happens. But a technical error does not turn a young woman's panic into the truth. Annie wanted to scream, but in her mind, her mother's voice suddenly rose, steady and clear as it had always been. Do not let anger blur your truth. She took a breath and forced herself to slow her voice. Mr. Harrington, when you came back out wearing that white shirt, Mr. Langford touched your chest and your shoulder. He left powder there. When the lights went out, the marks would glow. That was the whole point. William looked toward the torn shirt on the chair. Robert looked there too. William, for God's sake, that shirt was torn because she attacked you. By now it could have fabric, fibers, dust, anything on it. Then no one should touch it again, Annie said. Robert smiled at her. It was a thin, cold smile filled with contempt. You speak as if you have authority here. I am saying it because every second you hold it, move it, or fold it, you are damaging something that could prove the truth. William looked at Annie longer this time. He hated the feeling forming inside him. Because her words no longer sounded like panic. They sounded like a sequence. An observation. Like someone trying to protect evidence with everything she had. Linda spoke into the phone, her voice low but urgent. Yes, this is Linda Pierce on the executive floor. Mr. Harrington needs Mr. Cole from facilities up here immediately. Yes, right now. When she hung up, Alan Reed from legal cleared his throat from the back of the room. Mr. Harrington, Alan said. Perhaps we should preserve the room as it is, until we understand what happened. Robert snapped his head toward him. Alan, don't be dramatic. Alan did not answer, but his expression no longer seemed entirely on Robert's side. William forced himself to stay calm. Annie, tell me exactly what you think was going to happen. Robert snapped. William, do not indulge this. William's voice hardened at once. I am asking her. Annie looked at the torn shirt on the chair, then at the plastic bag on the table. Her mouth was dry. Her heart was pounding so hard she could almost hear it in her ears. They were going to use that powder to mark you, she said. Then, when the lights went out, whoever came in would be able to find your position by the glow on your shirt. I heard them say that person would come in through the staff door. Several people in the room immediately turned toward the side door near the copy room, the one connected to the supply corridor. Annie continued, I don't know that person's name. I didn't see him in the storage room. But I heard Robert say the mark would be enough. Robert stepped forward. His voice dropped, heavy like a threat wrapped in concern. Annie, you need to stop. Right now. You have no idea how badly you are hurting yourself. She looked directly into his eyes. I know exactly what you did to him. The door opened before Robert could answer. A solidly built man wearing a maintenance badge stepped inside, still holding a tablet. Mr. Harrington, he said, looking around the chaotic room. Linda said you needed me. William did not take his eyes off Robert. Cole, who authorized the lights to go out tonight? Cole hesitated when he saw William standing there with a jacket draped over him, the torn shirt on the chair, and the entire room dead silent. Sir, answer the question. Cole looked down and checked the tablet. The request was submitted at 4:42 p.m. Full blackout on the executive floor for 10 minutes. Backup safety lighting delayed, unless manually activated. Linda frowned. Delayed? That was not in my event notes. William asked, who sent the request? Cole slid his finger across the screen. A second later, he looked up. From Mr. Langford's office, sir. Robert exhaled sharply. Perhaps my assistant sent it. We were coordinating the tribute segment. This is being twisted. Annie spoke immediately. Ask him why the staff door wasn't locked. Cole looked back at the tablet, this time more slowly. There is also a note about temporary access to the maintenance corridor. William's face changed clearly. Robert's voice turned harsh. Enough. She asks questions, and you follow along as if this were a trial? No, William said quietly. This is my office. Annie took one step toward him. Sir, I know you don't believe me. If I had not heard it with my own ears, I probably would not believe it either. But please, check the bottle, check the shirt, check the storage room camera. If I am wrong, I will accept whatever happens to me. If Annie's courage moved you, please like this video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps stories about truth and justice reach more people. And if you want to hear more emotional stories like this, Please subscribe to the channel. Robert's voice turned cold. This has gone far enough. At last, William looked directly at him. Has it? Robert's lips parted, then closed again. William turned to Linda. Call legal. Tell them to preserve all camera footage from this floor and the storage level. Cole, lock the lighting system logs. No edits. No deletions. Cole nodded at once. Yes, sir. William looked at the torn shirt on the chair. Then he looked at the plastic bag on the table. The room remained silent. Finally, he said, Someone get me another shirt. Linda moved first, grateful for a task that did not require her to decide whom she believed. She hurried to William's private office and returned with a pale blue dress shirt still folded from the laundry service. William took it without thanking her, turned slightly away from the room, and put it on under the jacket. His hands were steady, but Annie could see the anger in the way he fastened each button. No one had resumed the party. The food stayed on the table. The champagne stayed closed. People stood in small groups, whispering in careful tones, the way office workers speak when they know a lawsuit may be forming in the same room. Robert had not moved far from the chair where he had dropped the torn shirt. He kept his face calm, but his eyes kept measuring exits, faces, reactions. Annie noticed that he no longer looked directly at the plastic pouch on the conference table. William finished buttoning the shirt and turned to Cole from facilities. I want the storage room camera pulled up here. Now. Cole shifted the tablet in his hands. Sir, I can access the system from the media console, but if legal wants chain of custody, do it while legal watches, William said. Alan Reed, the company attorney, stepped forward. I'll document the access. Linda, start a written log. Time, names, every item handled, every system opened. Linda nodded and opened her laptop with shaking fingers. Robert gave a tired sigh. William, you're turning an embarrassing outburst into an internal investigation in front of half your leadership team. William faced him. Then help clear it up. I have nothing to clear up. Good, William said. Then you won't mind standing right there while we check. Robert's jaw moved once. Annie stood near the side of the conference table, close enough to see the pouch but far enough that no one could accuse her of touching it. Her hands still trembled, so she pressed them lightly against the seams of her blazer. She hated that everyone could see her fear. She hated more that Robert had noticed. He turned his head toward her. You understand this can follow you for the rest of your life, don't you? Annie did not answer. Robert lowered his voice. Internships end quietly all the time. Accusations like this don't. William heard enough. Robert raised both hands a little. I'm only saying what everyone is thinking. No, Linda said softly. Everyone turned. Linda's face colored, but she did not take the words back. She looked at William, not Robert. I'm not thinking that. Robert stared at her. Excuse me? Linda swallowed. I approved the event schedule. 2 minutes of dimmed lights. That was the plan. I never sent a request for 10 minutes. I never approved delayed safety lights. If Mr. Doe, Cole's log says otherwise, then something was changed after my final schedule. The room had a new silence now, thinner and sharper. Cole connected his tablet to the media console. The large screen at the far end of the room came alive, no longer showing the tribute slide but a security dashboard with camera names arranged in a grid. Storage level, William said. Cole typed. There are 3 cameras near that area. Hallway, supply entrance, and back corridor. The supply room interior camera looks inactive. Annie spoke before she could stop herself. It's not inactive. The small one above the supply shelves works. It was installed after the missing projector last month. Cole glanced at her, surprised. That one is on a different feed. Robert let out a short breath. Of course she knows where every camera is now. I know because I was asked to update the equipment inventory, Annie said. Nobody else wanted to do it. That landed harder than she expected. One of the junior managers lowered his eyes. Another shifted away from Robert by a few inches. Cole found the feed. The screen flickered, then showed a grainy view of the storage room from a high corner. Metal shelves filled the frame. Boxes of paper cups, printer toner, extension cords, folded tablecloths, and event supplies sat in uneven stacks. Rewind to 5:30, Annie said. William looked at her. Why 5:30? That's when I went down for the extra glasses. Cole moved the timeline back. The picture blurred, then settled. For a few seconds the room was empty. Then the door opened. Annie appeared on screen, entering with a clipboard in one hand. She picked up a box of glasses, checked a shelf, then froze near the door as voices from the hallway must have reached her. She stepped out of view. A minute later, Robert Langford entered. No one spoke. Victor Hale followed him in. William's face tightened. "You told me you hadn't seen Victor today." Robert's reply came too fast. "I didn't think a brief conversation mattered." On screen, Robert shut the door. Victor placed a small black case on a shelf. The camera had no sound, but the gestures were clear. Robert pointed toward a folded white shirt inside a garment bag. Victor removed a small bottle with a black cap and set it on a cardboard box. Robert picked it up, turned it once, then made a rubbing motion across his own chest and shoulder, as if demonstrating where a hand would go. Linda stopped typing. William stared at the screen without blinking. The footage continued. Victor opened the black case. From the camera angle, no one could see its contents clearly, only that it was small, narrow, and handled with care. Robert nodded. He checked his watch. Then both men moved toward the door. As Robert turned, his elbow struck the box. The small bottle rolled off and dropped near a stack of printer paper. Annie appeared on the screen only after both men had left. She waited, entered slowly, found the bottle, then looked around the shelf. She pulled on yellow cleaning gloves from a dispenser by the utility sink, picked up the bottle, and placed it into a clear pouch. Alan Reed whispered, "That helps her," Robert snapped. "It proves she took company property." Annie looked at him. "It proves I knew enough not to touch what you dropped." William turned from the screen. "Cole, can we see the lighting request?" Cole nodded and pulled up another window. Submitted from executive admin credentials assigned to Mr. Langford's office at 4:42 p.m., 10-minute blackout, safety lights delayed, service corridor access active. Robert said, "My office has multiple assistants." Linda's voice sharpened. "Not with your personal authorization code." Robert looked at her as if she had betrayed him. William's voice was quiet. "Show the access log for the service corridor." Cole typed again. "Temporary badge created at 5:06 p.m. Vendor maintenance classification. Active for executive floor only. Expires at midnight." Annie thought of the man she had seen near the side door before she tore the shirt away. "Where is he?" Several people turned toward the service entrance. It stood closed. William's expression changed. "Who was watching that door?" No one answered. Robert used the silence. "This is exactly what I mean. Panic creates shadows. Now, every hallway is suspicious." Cole's tablet chimed before anyone could respond. He looked at it and frowned. The temporary badge just pinged at the stairwell exit. William stepped toward him. "Now?" "Yes, sir." Robert moved for the first time since the footage had started, only half a step, but Annie saw it. So did William. "Linda," William said, "call 911. Robert's head turned. "William, don't." William did not raise his voice. "Alan, preserve the footage. Cole, freeze every access log. Linda, make the call." Annie stood very still, the weight of the room pressing around her. William still had not said he believed her. He had not thanked her. He had not apologized. But he was no longer treating her words like noise. Robert understood that too. His face lost its practiced hurt. And for a moment, Annie saw the man from the storage room, the one who had spoken about William's fall, as if it were a line item in a report. William looked at him and said, "Robert, don't move." No one moved for 3 full seconds. Then Robert smiled. And that smile frightened Annie more than his anger had. It was not large. It was not warm. It was the kind of smile a man wears when he is buying time. "William," he said, "you are making a mistake." William stood near the head of the conference table in the pale blue shirt Linda had brought him. The collar was still uneven. One button missed near the middle. But no one in the room seemed to notice. His eyes stayed on Robert. "Then help me correct it," William said. "Sit down." Robert did not sit. Linda had the phone pressed to her ear, speaking in a low, urgent voice. "Yes, this is Harrington Global, executive floor. We need police assistance. Possible attempted assault. Possible evidence tampering. Yes, the chairman is safe." At the word safe, Annie felt her knees weaken. She had not allowed herself to think of that yet. Safe meant he was still standing. Safe meant she had reached him in time. But safe did not mean believed. Not yet. Cole kept one hand on his tablet, his eyes moving between the access log and the service entrance. Alan Reed was typing notes quickly, his face pale behind his glasses. Robert turned slowly toward the room. "You're all watching a career end," he said. "Not mine. Hers." He pointed at Annie without looking at her. She panicked, attacked the chairman, stole a container from a storage room, and now she's dragging respectable people into a fantasy because she's afraid of consequences. Annie's mouth went dry, but she did not look away. William said, "Robert, I told you to sit. And I'm telling you to think," Robert replied. "Think like the man who built this company, not like a man embarrassed in front of his employees." That hit its mark. Annie saw William's face tighten. Robert knew exactly where to press. Pride, reputation, control. Robert took one step toward him. "Do you really want police walking into your office tonight? Reporters will have this by morning." Harrington Global's founder, half-dressed at his own party, while an intern screams about glowing powder. "The board will ask whether you're still fit to lead." Linda lowered the phone slightly, eyes wide. William's expression did not change, but Annie could see the sentence had landed. Men like William lived in public even when the doors were closed. A rumor could move faster than evidence. Robert softened his voice. "Let me handle this. We can send everyone home. We can review the footage privately. If something is wrong, we deal with it quietly. If she's lying, we protect the company from a scandal." "I'm not lying," Annie said. Robert turned on her. "Stop talking." The command cracked across the room. It was the first time he had lost the polished tone completely. Annie felt the old fear rise, the kind she had carried in school offices, in scholarship interviews, in rooms where people heard her accent before they heard her answers. But this time, her fear had nowhere useful to go, so she stood still and let it burn. William looked at Robert. "Don't speak to her like that." Robert blinked once. "Excuse me? You heard me." For a moment, Robert seemed more offended by that than by the accusation itself. Annie understood then that he had expected William to doubt her forever. He had built his whole plan on the room seeing her as small. A knock sounded at the conference room door. Everyone turned. Cole checked his tablet. "That's building security." William nodded to Linda. She opened the door only a few inches. Two uniformed building guards stood outside, both looking uneasy. "Mr. Harrington," the older guard said, "we got a floor seal request." William answered from inside the room. "No one enters except police. No one leaves. Keep the elevator locked on this floor. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Linda closed the door again. Robert's eyes shifted toward the service entrance. It was a quick glance, but Annie saw it. So did Cole. Cole frowned at the tablet. The temporary badge just pinged again. "Where?" William asked. "Stairwell B, 2 floors down," Robert said. "That could be any maintenance worker." Cole shook his head. "No, sir. It's the same temporary badge," Linda whispered. "The man who came through the side corridor." Annie remembered him clearly now. The gray cap pulled low, the tool pouch hanging too flat against his hip. The way he had moved without looking at anyone except William's shirt. He had not come to fix anything, he had come to finish something. William's voice was low. "Can security stop him?" Cole tapped the tablet. "They can try, but if he reaches the lower garage, call the guards at the garage," William said. Linda was still on the line with emergency dispatch. She spoke quickly into the phone, repeating the stairwell and garage information. Robert adjusted his cuffs. It was such a normal gesture that it seemed obscene in that room. "William, I'm going to say this once more. You are letting confusion turn into theater." Alan Reed looked up. "Robert, the best thing you can do is stop talking until counsel is present." Robert stared at him. "I am counsel enough for this company tonight." "No," William said. "Not anymore." The words settled over the table like a verdict not yet signed. Robert's face changed. Not much, but enough. The wounded friend disappeared. The senior executive disappeared. What remained was a man calculating how much ground had been lost. Annie had seen that same face in the storage room when Victor Hale asked what would happen if William refused to change shirts. Robert had said, "Then we create a reason. No hesitation. No shame." William turned to Annie. "You said Victor handed him something." "Yes, sir." "What did it look like?" "A small black case. Not large. About the size of a glasses case, maybe thinner. Mr. Langford didn't open it all the way from where I could see, but Victor handled it carefully." Cole spoke from the media console. "There was a black case in the footage." Alan nodded. "Visible, yes. Not identifiable." Annie added, "The man near the service door had something in his right hand when I reached Mr. Harrington. I didn't see it clearly, until it fell." William looked toward the small object, still lying near the chair, now marked by everyone's fear. It was too far away to identify from where he stood, but the shape was enough to chill the room. Robert suddenly laughed. "This is madness. You're all standing around staring at office supplies and shadows." Annie said, "Then why did you try to pick up the shirt?" Robert's smile vanished. She continued, quieter now. "If it was nothing, why move it?" No one answered for him. Outside the room, a radio crackled. A guard shouted something in the hall. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps fading toward the stairwell. Linda spoke into the phone again. "Yes. They're pursuing someone with a temporary maintenance badge. Stairwell B. Please tell officers." William turned back to Robert. "Who is he?" Robert spread his hands. "I have no idea." Annie shook her head. "You do." Robert's eyes cut to her. "You should be careful, Miss Carter. People can mistake confidence for truth. And people can mistake a title for character," Annie said. A few heads turned toward her, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. William stared at Robert for another long second, then reached for the phone on the conference table. "Get me Daniel Cho, in outside audit." Robert's face tightened. "Why?" William did not look at him. "Because if Annie is telling even half the truth, this was never only about tonight." Robert said nothing. William dialed from memory. While the line rang, he kept his eyes on Robert. Annie stood beside the table, the plastic pouch still in clear view, and felt the room shift around her. It had not moved all the way toward truth, not yet. But it had moved away from Robert. For the first time since she had screamed, Annie could breathe. Then Cole's tablet chimed again. His face went stiff. "Sir," he said, "security just stopped the man at the garage entrance." William lowered the phone slightly. Cole looked at Annie, then at William. They found a second badge on him, and a small case. The word small case moved through the room faster than any shout. William held the phone halfway between his ear and the table. Daniel Cho from outside audit had not answered yet, but William no longer seemed to hear the ringing. His attention was on Cole. "What kind of case?" William asked. Cole listened through his earpiece, one hand pressed against it. "Black. Hard shell. Security hasn't opened it. They're waiting for police." Robert laughed once, too softly. "So now a maintenance worker carrying a tool case is proof of murder?" "No one said tool case," Annie said. Robert's head turned toward her. "You enjoy this, don't you?" Annie almost answered too quickly. She stopped herself. The whole room was watching, and Robert wanted her angry. He wanted her loud. He wanted William to see a frightened intern instead of a witness. "No," she said. "I wish I had never gone downstairs." That answer seemed to trouble William more than any accusation. He looked at her for a brief moment, then ended the unanswered call and set the phone down. "Cole, tell security to hold him exactly where he is. No one opens that case until police arrive." Cole nodded and relayed the order. Robert stepped closer to William, lowering his voice, though not enough to hide it from the room. "Think carefully. If police open that case and find nothing, you will have humiliated yourself, me, and this company, over a young woman's imagination." William looked at him. "And if they find something?" Robert's mouth tightened. "They won't." "You sound certain." "I sound rational." "No," William said. "You sound invested." The room went still again. Linda kept typing the log, but her fingers slowed. Alan Reed stood beside her, reading each line over her shoulder. Annie could see the list forming. 7:40, 2 p.m. Annie Carter displays clear pouch containing small bottle. 7:44 p.m. Robert Langford observed holding torn shirt. 7:48 p.m. Footage shows Langford and Victor Hale in storage room. It felt strange to see the worst minutes of her life becoming office language. The elevator bell chimed faintly beyond the doors. Linda looked up. Police? Cole checked the building security panel. Not yet. Building guards. They're bringing Mr. Sweeney from the garage level. Who is Sweeney? William asked. Night operations supervisor, Linda said. He may know who the temporary badge was issued to. Robert's face changed again, a small flicker near the eyes. Annie caught it because she had been watching him too long to miss anything now. You know him, she said. Robert gave her a tired look. I know most department supervisors. That is called running a company. No, Annie said. You were afraid before Linda said his name. Robert's smile returned. Annie, you keep mistaking your feelings for facts. William turned toward the door. Bring Sweeney in. Linda opened the door after checking through the side glass. 2 building guards entered with a heavy-set man in a brown operations jacket. His name badge read Mark Sweeney. He looked like a man who had expected a complaint about air conditioning and found himself in a boardroom crisis. Mr. Harrington, he said, wiping one hand against his pants before he remembered not to offer it. I came as fast as I could. William did not waste time. Who requested the temporary maintenance badge tied to the service entrance tonight? Sweeney glanced at Robert, then away. William saw it. Don't look at him, William said. Look at me. Sweeney swallowed. The request came through executive admin. Whose authorization? Sweeney shifted his weight. Mr. Langford's. Robert stepped in. My office sends dozens of access requests a month. That does not mean I personally approve each one. Sweeney's eyes flicked to him again. This one was marked direct approval. Robert's tone chilled. Careful, Mark. William's voice cut in. No. He should be very careful. That means he should tell the truth. Sweeney nodded, relief and fear fighting on his face. It was direct approval. I got a call after the request came in. A man said the contractor was part of the tribute setup and shouldn't be delayed at the front desk. What man? Alan asked. Sweeney hesitated. William said, say the name. Mr. Langford. Robert shook his head. That is false. Sweeney's face reddened. Sir, I've worked nights in this building for 12 years. I know your voice. The sentence struck harder because it was plain. No speech. No drama. Just a working man saying what he knew. Robert turned to William. He's confused. I'm not, Sweeney said more firmly now. You told me if anyone asked. The maintenance access was for lighting calibration. Cole looked at his tablet. That matches the note in the system. William's hands curled once at his sides. Annie could see him building a wall inside himself, brick by brick. Because the alternative was letting the betrayal hit all at once. Outside the conference room, another elevator chime sounded. This time Linda checked her phone and said, Police are in the lobby. 2 officers coming up with building security. Robert's gaze moved quickly across the room. To the main doors. To the service entrance. To William. To the pouch. To the torn shirt. Annie stepped slightly toward the table without touching anything. Robert noticed. You still think you're the hero here? He said. I think you're running out of room, Annie answered. The words came out before she could soften them. Linda looked at her with something that might have been fear or respect. Robert's eyes darkened. You have no idea what people like me can survive. William finally turned fully toward him. People like you? Robert did not answer. William moved closer, not fast, not loud. How long, Robert? Don't do this. How long have you been taking money? Robert's expression hardened. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking how long the man I trusted has been selling pieces of my company behind my back. A murmur ran through the executives. Until that moment, some of them had thought this was only about the shirt, the powder, the strange attack that Annie had stopped. Now the other half of the story stepped into the room. Robert looked around and saw it too. His audience was changing. Alan Reed spoke carefully. Mr. Harrington, outside audit should be notified immediately. We should also freeze Mr. Langford's system access. Robert snapped. You will do no such thing. William did not look away from him. Cole, can you disable executive credentials? Cole hesitated. With approval from the chairman and legal. Yes, you have it, William said. And mine, Alan added. Robert's hand moved toward his jacket pocket. Don't, Annie said. Every head turned. Robert froze. Don't what? I saw you texting earlier, Annie said. Right after Cole said the badge pinged at the stairwell. You put your hand in that same pocket. Robert's face stayed still, but his eyes gave him away. William said, Put your phone on the table. Robert smiled faintly. No, the word was small, but it changed everything. For years, Robert had answered William with yes. Of course, already done. That single no pulled the mask halfway off. William's voice lowered. Put it on the table. Robert looked at the doors. From the hall came the sound of police radios. Closer now. Then he moved. Not toward William, not toward Annie. Toward the side door. The room burst into motion. Sweeney stepped back. Linda cried out. Cole nearly dropped the tablet. Robert reached the service entrance and grabbed the handle. But it did not open. The floor seal had locked it. He pulled again, harder. William said, Robert. Robert turned, breathing through his nose, the phone now visible in his hand. His calm was gone. You should have left it alone, he said. William stared at him. The theft? Robert laughed without warmth. The company. The audit. The way you sit up here pretending every dollar was earned by your genius alone. You built the name, yes, but men like me kept the machine alive while you gave speeches. Annie heard pain under the anger, but not regret. That made it worse. William said, So you were going to kill me for it. Robert's eyes flicked toward the torn shirt. I was going to survive you. The main doors opened. 2 Chicago police officers entered with building security behind them. The first officer took in the room in one practiced sweep. The torn shirt, the pouch, William's state, Robert at the locked side door, the faces of employees who had seen too much. Everyone stay where you are, she said. Robert lifted his hands slowly. Phone still in one of them. Officer. Thank God. This has become a misunderstanding. Annie felt the last of her fear turn cold. The officer looked at William. Mr. Harrington. William pointed to Robert. His voice was steady now, but it carried the weight of a man naming someone he had once trusted. That man tried to have me killed. The officer did not react to William's words with shock. She only turned slightly toward her partner. Separate him, she said. The second officer stepped toward Robert. Sir. Set the phone on the table. Robert's face settled back into the careful calm he had worn for most of the evening. Of course, he said. I'm happy to cooperate. No, the officer said. On the table. Now. Robert placed the phone down with 2 fingers, as if it were something beneath him. Then he lifted his hands a little higher. The first officer, whose name badge read Ramirez, looked at William. Are you injured? No, William said, then glanced at Annie. Not because of her. Annie heard it, but she did not let herself feel relief yet. William still sounded like a man standing in the middle of a storm, unsure which direction the damage had come from. Officer Ramirez looked toward Annie. You're the one who intervened? Annie nodded. Yes, ma'am. How old are you? 18. Robert made a small sound, almost a laugh. Exactly. Officer Ramirez turned her head. Did I ask you something? Robert went quiet. Linda Pierce stepped forward with her laptop hugged against her chest. Officer, I've been keeping a log since Mr. Harrington ordered us to preserve the room. Times, names, what was touched, what was moved. Ramirez nodded. Good. Keep it open. Don't edit it. Alan Reed raised one hand. I'm company counsel. We have footage from the storage room, access logs showing a 10-minute lighting shutdown, and a temporary maintenance badge issued under Mr. Langford's authorization. Robert looked at Alan. You might want to remember who hired your firm. Alan's face tightened, but his voice stayed even. Tonight, I remember who signs my ethics oath. That brought a small shift in the room. A few people who had been standing stiff and silent seemed to breathe again. Officer Ramirez pointed toward the torn shirt on the chair. Is that the item? Annie answered before anyone else could. Yes. Please, don't let anyone touch it, bare-handed. Ramirez looked at her, not annoyed, not warm, just focused. Why? It may have fluorescent powder on it. Mr. Langford tried to pick it up earlier. I think he wanted to move it or get rid of it. Robert snapped. That is a lie. Ramirez held up one hand. You'll have your turn. William's eyes moved toward the chair. He did pick it up. Robert stared at him. William, you did, William said. She told you to put it down. Robert's mouth closed. Ramirez asked, who else touched the shirt after it was removed? Annie swallowed. I tore it off Mr. Harrington and threw it aside. Mr. Langford picked it up. Then he tossed it onto that chair. Anyone else? No, William said. I don't think so. Ramirez nodded to her partner. Bag the shirt. Photograph first. The second officer opened a field kit. Camera flash filled the room twice. The torn white shirt, the plastic pouch with the small bottle, the phone, the chair, the service entrance, the fallen glass near the table. Each ordinary object became part of something official. Annie watched the officer use gloves and evidence bags. Her hands began to shake again, but this time from the release of holding herself steady for too long. William noticed. Linda, he said quietly. Get Annie some water. I'm fine, Annie said. No, William said, not harshly this time. You are not. Linda brought a bottle from the side table and opened it before handing it to Annie. Their fingers touched briefly. Linda's voice dropped low enough for only Annie to hear. I should have listened sooner. Annie looked at her, surprised. Linda's eyes were wet but controlled, the eyes of a woman who had spent years arranging powerful men's days and knew when one of them had gone wrong. It's okay, Annie said, though it was not. Ramirez turned to Robert. Mr. Langford, where were you between 5:30 and 6 tonight? Robert straightened. In and out of meetings. With Victor Hale? I may have spoken to Mr. Hale briefly. He represents a company with ongoing interests in our sector. That is not a crime. Did you meet him in the storage room? Robert smiled faintly. I don't recall. Annie looked at him in disbelief. You don't recall standing right there on camera? Robert did not look at her. Videos require context. Ramirez asked, did you authorize a temporary maintenance badge? My office may have processed one for event support. Did you authorize the lighting shutdown? My office assisted with a tribute plan. I did not personally handle every detail. Cole spoke from the media console. Your personal code was used. Robert turned toward him. Codes can be misused. Sweeney, still standing near the doors, spoke up before fear could stop him. You called me, Mr. Langford. You told me not to delay the contractor. Robert's face hardened. Mark, you're confused. Sweeney looked at Officer Ramirez. I'm not confused. I took the call at 5:08. I wrote it in my shift notes. Ramirez looked at him. Do you have those notes? Yes, ma'am. In my office and on my phone. Preserve both. Sweeney nodded quickly. The second officer finished bagging the shirt and moved toward the plastic pouch. Annie watched him seal the bottle without opening it. The black cap looked small inside the evidence bag. Almost harmless. That was the part that made her stomach turn. Terrible things did not always look terrible. Ramirez's radio crackled. She listened, then spoke into it. Say that again. The room waited. She looked at William. The man detained in the garage had a hard case. Inside was a syringe and a second small container. No one was punctured. Evidence is being secured. Linda closed her eyes. William went very still. Annie's body understood the words before her mind did. Syringe. Second container. The man had not been a shadow from her imagination. He had been real, close enough to reach William before she tore the shirt away. William looked at Robert, and what remained of doubt began to leave his face. Robert lifted his hands, palms out. I have never seen that man before, Ramirez said. We'll find out. Alan Reed stepped beside William and spoke low. Sir, we should freeze Mr. Langford's accounts and system access immediately. If there's financial exposure. There is, William said. Robert's head turned sharply. You don't know that. William's voice was cold. I know enough to have ordered an outside audit 3 days ago. That was the first time he said it aloud. The effect was immediate. Several executives stared at William. Robert stared hardest of all. You audited me? Robert asked. I audited the company. You mean me? William did not answer. Robert gave a bitter smile. After 15 years. After numbers stopped making sense. Robert's eyes darkened. I kept this company moving while you chased headlines and legacy projects. You stole from it. You don't know what I did. No, William said. But I'm beginning to understand what you were willing to do to keep me from finding out. Ramirez stepped between them before the room could heat further. Mr. Langford, I'm going to advise you not to continue. Robert drew in a slow breath. Am I under arrest? Not yet, Ramirez said, but you are not leaving. William looked to Cole. Disable his credentials. Cole glanced at Alan. Alan nodded. Do it. Cole typed quickly. Robert watched every keystroke as if each one cut a wire inside him. Done, Cole said. Executive access suspended. Email, finance system, building access, admin approvals. Robert laughed once under his breath. You think passwords are loyalty? William said, no. Tonight proved that. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Annie, still holding the bottle of water Linda had given her, said quietly, there's another thing. William turned. What? In the storage room, Mr. Hale said the sale had to happen before Monday. He said once the market opened, the damage would look natural if you were gone. Alan's face sharpened. The sale of what? Shares, Annie said. He said discounted blocks. I don't know what that means. Alan did. William did too. Robert's expression closed, but too late. William picked up the conference phone again and dialed. This time someone answered. Daniel, he said, his eyes never leaving Robert. It's William Harrington. Freeze every file tied to Robert Langford, Victor Hale, and any off-market share transfer scheduled before Monday. Yes, right now. And Daniel? Bring everything to the police. Robert's smile disappeared completely. Officer Ramirez looked at him. Mr. Langford, turn around and place your hands behind your back. Robert's voice came out flat. On what charge? Ramirez stepped closer. For now, obstruction and attempted evidence tampering. More may follow. Robert looked at William one last time. You're making her the hero because you need someone simple to blame. William's face tightened. No, I'm listening to her because she was the only one who told the truth. The cuffs closed around Robert's wrists. Annie looked away, not because she felt sorry for him, but because the sound was heavier than she expected. It was the sound of a room realizing that a title, a salary, and 15 years of trust could not protect a lie forever. Robert did not fight the cuffs. That made it worse. He stood very still while Officer Ramirez's partner checked his pockets and removed a slim wallet, a key fob, and a second phone that had been hidden inside the lining of his jacket. When the officer held it up, Robert closed his eyes for half a second. William saw it. So there was another phone, he said. Robert opened his eyes. I carry backup devices. Executives do that. Executives don't hide them in jacket linings, Linda said. Her voice surprised even herself. She pressed her lips together, but she did not apologize. Officer Ramirez placed the second phone into an evidence bag. We'll let the lab tell us what kind of executive habit this is. Robert turned toward Annie. You think this ends well for you? William stepped forward. Don't speak to her. Robert smiled faintly. There he is, the noble man, the grateful survivor. Tomorrow morning you'll remember she embarrassed you in front of everyone, and you'll hate her for it. William's face tightened, but he said nothing. Annie wished Robert had not said it because a part of her feared it might be true. She still stood in the same room where she had torn the shirt off the most powerful man in the building. Evidence or not, she could feel the image of it hanging over her. People remembered humiliation longer than they remembered rescue. Officer Ramirez nodded toward the door. Take him downstairs. As Robert was led past the conference table, he slowed near William. You were never going to share control, Robert said. You built a kingdom and called it a company. William answered quietly. And you tried to turn betrayal into succession? For the first time, Robert's face twisted. I earned more than you ever gave me. The officers moved him forward. The doors opened. Building guards stood outside, stiff and silent. Robert Langford, the man who had run executive meetings, approved budgets, and spoken for William when William was away, was walked out in handcuffs past the same employees who had once hurried to clear his calendar. No one clapped, no one spoke. When the doors closed, the room did not relax. It sagged. William turned toward Officer Ramirez. What happens now? We preserve the scene, collect statements, coordinate with financial crimes if the records support what you're saying, and question the man detained in the garage. Your company attorney can advise you on internal steps, but no one deletes, edits, moves, cleans, or explains away anything. Alan Reed nodded. Understood. Ramirez looked toward Annie. Miss Carter, I'll need your full statement tonight. Annie nodded. Yes, ma'am. You can have someone with you if you want. Annie thought of her mother. Grace Carter would be home by now, probably reheating soup, maybe wondering why Annie had not texted that the party was over. "I need to call my mom," Annie said. William looked at her then, not as an employer looks at an intern who forgot a task, but as a man suddenly remembering that the person who had saved him was 18 and had a life outside his office. "Of course," he said. "Use my office." Annie hesitated. Linda stepped closer. "I'll go with her." William nodded. Annie followed Linda through the side door into William's private office. It was quieter there, though the walls did not quite keep out the murmur of police and employees beyond the glass. The office smelled faintly of coffee, leather chairs, and the cologne William had worn earlier in the evening. A framed photograph on the credenza showed William at a groundbreaking ceremony, shovel in hand, smiling beside city officials. Annie had dusted that frame once during her first week because no one else had noticed the fingerprints. Linda handed Annie the desk phone, then seemed to realize Annie would rather use her own. "Sorry," she said. "Habit." Annie pulled out her cell. Her hand shook so badly, she missed the passcode twice. Linda pretended not to notice. Grace answered on the second ring. "Annie? Baby? Are you on your way?" Annie closed her eyes. The sound of her mother's voice almost broke her. "Mom," she said. "I'm okay." Grace went quiet. Mothers knew that sentence. They knew it often arrived before the part that was not okay. "What happened?" Annie looked through the glass wall toward the conference room, where officers were photographing the chair, the shirt, the pouch, the place where the glass had fallen. "I did something," Annie said. "I had to." "Are you hurt?" "No." "Is someone else hurt?" "No, I stopped it before that." Grace breathed out, but it was not relief yet. "Where are you?" "Still at Harrington Global. The police are here." "The police?" Linda looked at Annie with concern, but Annie held up one hand, asking for a moment. "I can't explain all of it on the phone," Annie said, "but I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Then it started happening, just like they said it would. I had to stop Mr. Harrington." A pause. Then Grace said, "Did you tell the truth?" "Yes." "Did you put your hands on anything you shouldn't have?" "No. I used gloves, like you always told me." Linda looked down quickly, emotion crossing her face. Grace's voice softened. "Then stand straight. Speak clear. Don't let anyone make you sound smaller than what you know." Annie pressed her free hand against the desk edge. "Mom, they might ask you to come here." "I'm getting my coat." "You don't have to." "I'm getting my coat," Grace repeated. "Text me the address, even though I know where that building is." "And Annie?" "Yes? I'm proud of you before I know the whole story." Annie could not answer for a second. "Okay." When she ended the call, Linda handed her a tissue without making a show of it. "My mother used to say something like that," Linda said. "Different words, same meaning." Annie wiped her eyes quickly. "You don't have to be nice to me because you feel bad." Linda accepted that without flinching. "I feel bad because I should. But I'm being nice because you deserve it." Before Annie could respond, William appeared at the office doorway. He had fixed the mismatched button on his shirt, but he looked older than he had 20 minutes earlier. "Miss Carter," he said. "Officer Ramirez is ready for your statement." Annie nodded and started toward the door. William stepped aside, then spoke quietly enough that only she and Linda could hear. "I still don't understand all of what happened tonight," he said, "but I understand this much. You were braver than anyone else in that room." Annie looked at him. She wanted to accept it, but the night had not finished testing her. "Sir," she said, "being brave didn't make them believe me." William held her gaze. "No, but it kept me alive long enough to learn." Officer Ramirez set Annie at the far end of the conference table, away from the torn shirt, the pouch, and the chair where Robert had dropped the evidence. Linda stayed nearby, not close enough to speak for her, but close enough that Annie did not feel alone. William remained standing near the windows with Alan Reed, listening but not interrupting. Ramirez opened a small notebook. "Start from the beginning, Miss Carter. Not from when you tore the shirt. From when you first knew something was wrong." Annie folded her hands on the table to keep them still. "I was asked to get extra glasses from the storage room before the party. That was around 5:30. I went downstairs through the service hallway." "Who asked you?" "Miss Pierce did," Annie said, then glanced at Linda. "She didn't know anything. We were short on clean glasses because more people came than expected." Linda nodded. "That's true." Ramirez wrote it down. "Go on." "When I got near the storage room, I heard Mr. Langford's voice. I recognized it because I've heard him in meetings. He was talking to Victor Hale. William looked over at the name. His face gave nothing away, but his fingers tightened around the back of a chair. Ramirez asked, "Did they see you?" "No, ma'am." I stopped outside the door. I know I shouldn't have listened. But then Mr. Langford said Mr. Harrington would be down before morning, and he'd have interim control. After that, I couldn't walk away. "What else did you hear?" Annie took a breath. "They talked about making it look like a medical emergency during the party. Mr. Langford said he would spill wine on Mr. Harrington's vest, give him a white shirt, and mark it with fluorescent powder when he touched him. Then the lights would go out for 10 minutes. Someone with a maintenance badge would come in through the service entrance and find Mr. Harrington by the glow." Ramirez did not look surprised, but her pen paused. "Did they say what that person would do?" Annie's voice lowered. "Not in plain words at first. Victor asked if it would be quick. Mr. Langford said no one would notice until Mr. Harrington started going weak. Then Victor said the man had done this kind of work before." Linda shut her eyes for a moment. William turned away slightly. Ramirez asked, "Did you hear the word syringe?" "No. I heard Victor say the needle once. I thought maybe I misunderstood. But then tonight, when I ran to Mr. Harrington, I saw the man behind him. His hand was raised. Something fell when I tore the shirt and pushed Mr. Harrington aside. That item was recovered," Ramirez said. "You didn't touch it?" "I kicked it away. I didn't pick it up." "That's fine. We'll note it." Annie nodded. Though nothing about the night felt fine. Ramirez continued. "After Langford and Hale left the storage room, what did you do?" "I waited until I couldn't hear them. Then I went inside. The bottle was on the floor near the boxes. I remembered my mom telling me not to touch anything that might prove the truth, so I used gloves from the cleaning station. I put the bottle in a clear pouch from the supply shelf. Then I came back upstairs." "You told anyone?" "I tried," Annie said. "I told a coordinator I thought Mr. Harrington might be in danger. She said tonight wasn't the time for drama. I don't think she understood. I didn't explain well enough." Ramirez looked up. "Why not?" Annie almost said, "Because no one listens to girls like me." She stopped herself, then decided the truth did not need to be polished. "Because I was afraid she'd think I was crazy," she said. "And because Mr. Langford is Mr. Langford. I'm just an intern." William's eyes moved to her. Ramirez's face stayed professional, but her voice softened by a fraction. "You're a witness tonight. Keep going." Annie told the rest in order. Robert's toast, the spilled wine, the white shirt, the way Robert's palm had pressed against William's chest and shoulder, the announcement about the lights, the service door, the man in maintenance clothes, the glowing powder she expected to see later in the dark. She did not make herself sound calm. She did not make Robert sound worse than he was. She simply told it as it had happened. When she finished, the room seemed to exhale around her. Ramirez closed the notebook. "You did well." Annie gave a small nod. William finally spoke. "Officer, do you have enough to charge Victor Hale?" Ramirez turned to him. "That depends on what we find on the detained man, the phones, the footage, and the financial records. But if the evidence lines up with her statement, Mr. Hale won't be hard to find," Alan Reed said. "He was likely in the building earlier. We can provide visitor logs." Cole, still at the media console, said, "I already pulled them. Victor Hale signed in at 5:12 using a guest pass authorized by Robert's office. He left at 5:58 through the garage elevator." William's mouth tightened. "Of course he did." Linda looked at Annie. "You said he handed Robert something." The camera showed the case. Ramirez nodded. "We'll need that footage copied in a forensics, safe way. No internal edits." Alan answered. "We'll comply." A knock came at the door. One of the building guards opened it and spoke to Ramirez. "Ma'am, the man from the garage is refusing to give his name. He says he was hired through a temp maintenance service." Ramirez asked, "Onya ID?" "Fake, we think. But he had a phone. It's locked. Keep him downstairs until detectives arrive." The guard nodded and left. William turned to Cole. "Bring up Robert's access history for the last 30 days. Alan cleared his throat. "William, police may want—" "They can have it," William said. "But I want to see how long I've had a traitor sitting beside me." Alan did not argue. Cole pulled up another screen. Lines of data filled the display. Late-night logins. Financial folders opened after hours. vendor approvals, badge requests, document downloads. Annie did not understand all of it, but she could read the faces of the adults who did. Linda whispered, "That's not normal." "No," Alan said. "That is not normal." William stepped closer to the screen. "Open the vendor approvals." Cole clicked. Several company names appeared, bland and forgettable. One repeated more than the others. Northline, Strategic Services. Alan leaned forward. "I've never seen that vendor," William said. "I have. Robert told me it was compliance consulting." Cole opened the payment history. The numbers moved down the screen in neat columns, each one ordinary by itself, together forming something ugly. Annie watched William read. For the first time that night, he seemed less angry than wounded. Not weak. Wounded. There was a difference. Ramirez looked at the screen, then at Alan. "Financial crimes will want copies." "You'll have them," Alan said. William's phone rang on the table. The screen showed Daniel Cho. He answered on speaker. "Daniel," a man's voice came through, tense and clipped. "William, I found the transfer package. It was set to execute in pieces before market open Monday. Discounted blocks routed through shell entities. Robert's credentials are all over the preparation, but he tried to bury the final approvals under automated triggers." William closed his eyes for 1 second. Daniel continued, "There's more. Victor Hale's firm appears on the beneficial side through intermediaries. I'm sending everything to Alan and preserving the files." Ramirez stepped closer to the phone. "Mr. Cho, this is Officer Ramirez with Chicago Police. Do not send anything except through preserved channels once detectives contact you. Keep the files intact." "Yes, officer," Daniel said. "Understood." William ended the call. No one spoke. The party that had begun with crab cakes and champagne had become a map of betrayal. Powder on a shirt, a man in the garage, a hidden phone, a fake badge, a transfer package, waiting for Monday. Annie sat at the table and realized Robert had not planned one crime. He had planned a future. William looked at her then, and this time his doubt was almost gone. "Almost. I need to ask you something," he said. Annie straightened. "Yes, sir. When you heard them downstairs, why didn't you leave the building? Why didn't you protect yourself?" The question was not cruel. It sounded like he truly did not understand. Annie thought of the bus ride from South Side, her mother's tired hands. The way people in this building forgot her name. The way Robert had counted on that. "Because you were still upstairs," she said. "And because wrong is still wrong, even when the person in danger doesn't know your name." William looked away first. For a man like him, that may have been the closest thing to bowing his head. William's question stayed in the room after Annie answered it. "Because you were still upstairs." No one had a ready reply to that, not even the people who had spent their careers filling silence with polished language. Alan Reed looked at his notes. Linda wiped at the corner of one eye and pretended she was checking the call log. Cole kept the security screen open, though he had stopped typing. Officer Ramirez closed her notebook and looked toward William. "Detectives are on the way up. Until they arrive, I want statements from anyone who saw Mr. Langford touch the shirt after Mr. Harrington changed." A few hands lifted slowly. Linda spoke first. "I saw him pat Mr. Harrington's shoulder. I thought he was making a joke." "Where were you standing?" Ramirez asked. "By the refreshment table, near the champagne bucket." "Did you see his hand touch the front of the shirt?" Linda hesitated. "Yes, chest and shoulder. It looked friendly." An older executive named Paul Donnelly cleared his throat. He had said almost nothing all night. He was in his 60s, with reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck, and the tired posture of a man who had sat through too many quarterly meetings to be impressed by drama. "I saw it too." Robert was no longer in the room, yet people still seemed careful saying his name. Paul continued. "He made a joke about Mr. Harrington looking like he was starting a garage company again. Everyone laughed. I remember because I laughed." Ramirez wrote it down. "Anyone else?" 2 more employees confirmed the same thing. Their voices were quiet, but each statement placed another stone on the side of Annie's truth. William listened without moving. Annie could not tell whether the confirmations comforted him or cut him deeper. Maybe both. The conference room doors opened again, and 2 detectives entered with Officer Ramirez as partner. The first detective was a black woman in a dark coat, late 40s or early 50s, with calm eyes and the kind of presence that made people lower their voices without being told. The second was a white man with a trimmed gray beard and a notebook already in hand. "Detective Angela Brooks," the woman said. "This is Detective Mason. Who's William Harrington?" William stepped forward. "I am." Brooks took in his mismatched clothes, the sealed evidence bags, the employees gathered in tight groups, and Annie sitting at the table with a bottle of water she had barely touched. "Long night?" she asked. William gave a dry, humorless breath. "You could say that." Brooks looked to Ramirez. "Brief me." Ramirez gave the facts without decoration. The torn shirt, the fluorescent powder, the storage room footage, the temporary badge, the syringe found in the garage suspect's case, the possible financial motive, Robert Langford detained. As Ramirez spoke, Detective Brooks's eyes moved around the room and kept returning to Annie. When the briefing ended, Brooks walked to the table. "You're Annie Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "You gave the first statement?" "Yes." Brooks pulled out a chair, sat across from her, and set her notebook down. "I'm going to ask you some of the same questions again. That doesn't mean I don't believe you. It means details matter. You understand?" "I understand." William started to speak, but Brooks lifted a hand without looking at him. "Mr. Harrington, I'll get to you." For the first time all evening, someone stopped William Harrington in his own conference room and nobody treated it as strange. Annie almost smiled, then caught herself. Brooks noticed anyway. "Something funny?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Start with the storage room." Annie told it again. The walk downstairs. The voices. Robert saying William would be down before morning. Victor Hale asking about timing. The plan with the shirt, the powder, the 10-minute light shutoff, the service entrance. She included the parts she had not wanted to say the first time, including Robert's comment that people did not watch interns, janitors, or maintenance staff unless something went wrong. Detective Brooks's pen paused there. "He said that?" "Yes, ma'am." Brooks looked at William then. "That line explains why he thought this might work." William did not answer. Brooks turned back to Annie. "After they left, you used gloves and secured the bottle?" "Yes." "Where are those gloves now?" Annie blinked. "I put them in the trash near the utility sink. I didn't think—" "That's okay," Brooks said. "We'll collect them if they're still there." "You did better than most adults would have, under stress." Annie looked at her hands. She did not know what to do with praise from someone who sounded as though she meant it. Detective Mason had been reviewing the footage with Cole. "Angela," he called. "You'll want to see this." Brooks stood. Annie stayed seated, but the screen was large enough for everyone to see. Cole replayed the section from the storage room. Robert and Victor entered. The small bottle appeared. The black case. The demonstration across the chest and shoulder. The dropped bottle. Annie returning with gloves. Mason froze the image on Victor's face. "That's Victor Hale?" William said. "Yes." "Full name?" "Victor James Hale, Executive Vice President at Calvert Dominion." Mason wrote it down. "We'll issue a pickup," Alan Reed said. "Calvert Dominion is a direct competitor. There may be securities issues tied to the planned share transfer." Brooks looked at him. "Then start making a list of regulators who will care, but don't call them before we coordinate. This is a criminal investigation first." Alan nodded. "Understood." Cole played the next clip from the hallway outside the service entrance. The man in the maintenance jacket appeared at the edge of the frame. He kept his cap low, but the camera caught the badge clipped to his pocket. He waited until the room lights dimmed earlier for the slideshow test, then checked the door twice. Annie leaned forward. "That's him." Brooks looked at her. "The man you saw behind Mr. Harrington?" "Yes." The clip jumped ahead to the party. The camera angle did not show the entire room, but it showed enough. Robert guiding William back in the white shirt, touching him, laughing. Later, Annie moving suddenly, the shirt tearing, people scattering, the man near the service entrance pulling back. Mason slowed the video frame by frame. "There," Annie said. On screen, a small object fell from the man's hand as Annie pulled William aside. Brooks watched it twice, then turned to William. "Mr. Harrington, I'm going to be plain. If that object is what the garage officers think it is, and if the chemical analysis supports this powder story, Miss Carter likely interrupted an attempted homicide." William looked at Annie. The room waited for him to speak. Annie did not want a speech. She did not want gratitude in front of everyone. She wanted him to stop looking at her as if part of him still wished she had found a quieter way to save him. William's voice came out low. Likely? Brooks held his gaze. Police don't use certain words until labs finish. But between us as people standing in this room, you should be glad she moved when she did. That was the closest anyone had come to saying it fully. William nodded once, but it was not enough for Linda. She saved him, Linda said. Everyone turned to her. Linda stood straighter. I saw where that man was. I saw Annie reach Mr. Harrington first. If she hadn't, her voice caught, but she steadied it. She saved him. Paul Donnelly nodded slowly. She did. Another manager murmured agreement. Then another. The words spread quietly, not as applause, not as theater, but as acknowledgement. Annie felt them land around her, one by one, and still, she could not relax. Being believed after being mocked did not erase the mockery. It only made room to stand. Detective Brooks returned to the table. Miss Carter, your mother is on her way? Annie looked up. Yes, ma'am. When she gets here, we'll explain what we can. You're not under suspicion, but you are a key witness. I want you treated that way. William said, She will be. Brooks glanced at him. Make sure your people understand that. Sometimes the person who tells the truth becomes inconvenient after the emergency passes. William accepted the rebuke without defense. Annie noticed that. The doors opened once more. A building guard leaned in. Detective, Mrs. Carter is in the lobby. Annie stood too quickly, and the chair scraped behind her. William looked at her, then at Brooks. May she come up? Brooks nodded. Yes. And Mr. Harrington? Yes? Before her mother walks into this room, decide whether you're going to speak to that young woman as an intern who caused trouble, or as the reason you're still alive. William's face changed, not with anger this time, but with recognition. Annie looked away from him and toward the door, waiting for her mother's arrival, holding herself together with both hands. The guard stepped back, and the doors closed again while everyone waited. Annie did not sit. She could not. Her legs felt weak, but sitting would make her feel like a defendant waiting for judgment. And she was tired of feeling accused. She stood beside the conference table with Linda near her left shoulder and Detective Brooks across from her, while William Harrington remained a few steps away, quiet in a way that made the room uneasy. He had heard Detective Brooks. Everyone had. Decide whether you're going to speak to that young woman as an intern who caused trouble or as the reason you're still alive. William looked at Annie, then at the torn shirt sealed in an evidence bag. The white fabric was folded badly inside the plastic. No longer expensive. No longer ordinary. It looked like what it had become. Proof. I owe you an apology, he said. Annie looked up. The words did not come easily to him. They sounded unused, not because he lacked manners, but because men in his position often paid people to prevent situations where apologies were required. William continued. When you first shouted, I thought you had lost control. When you tore the shirt, I thought you had humiliated me. I did not understand that you were trying to keep me alive. Annie held the edge of the table lightly. You didn't know. No, he said, but I judged you before I listened. That part is on me. Linda lowered her eyes. Paul Donnelly cleared his throat. A few of the others shifted, not from boredom but discomfort. The apology had not been aimed at them, yet several felt its weight. Annie answered carefully. I knew it would look bad. It did, William said. Then his mouth tightened with something close to shame. But looking bad is not the same as being wrong. Detective Brooks watched without interrupting. The doors opened again. Grace Carter entered between the building guard and Officer Ramirez. She wore a dark coat buttoned wrong at the top, as if she had dressed too quickly. Her hair was pulled back, but loose strands framed a face that showed fear before anything else. She scanned the room once, saw police, executives, evidence bags, William Harrington in a borrowed shirt, then found Annie. Baba. Annie moved before she realized it. Grace met her halfway and took her into her arms. Not dramatic, not loud, just firm enough to remind Annie that she had not imagined home. Annie held on for 2 breaths longer than she meant to. I'm okay, Annie said. Grace pulled back and checked her face, shoulders, hands, as if the truth might be hidden there. You said that on the phone. I wanted to see it myself. I know. Grace turned toward Detective Brooks. Ma'am, I'm Grace Carter, Detective Angela Brooks. Your daughter has been helping us with a serious investigation. Grace's eyes moved to Annie. Helping? Yes, ma'am, Brooks said. She may have prevented a homicide tonight. Grace took that in without a sound. Her hand found Annie's and held it. William stepped forward. Mrs. Carter. Grace looked at him. She knew exactly who he was. Most people in Chicago's business pages did, but she did not bend under the name. Mr. Harrington. He paused, perhaps expecting fear, gratitude, apology, something easier than the steady look she gave him. Your daughter saved my life, he said. Grace's fingers tightened around Annie's. Then I thank God she was here. I treated her accusation with doubt. Grace's face did not soften. Most people do when the truth comes from someone they don't expect. That sentence landed so cleanly that no one moved. William accepted it. You're right. Grace looked around the room, taking in the executives who had stared at Annie. The secretary who looked ashamed, the police at the door, the sealed shirt on the table. Did anyone put hands on my daughter? Officer Ramirez answered. No force was used by police. Earlier, building security held her briefly after the incident. We'll include that in the report. Grace looked at Annie. Are you hurt? No, Mom. Did anyone threaten you? Annie hesitated. Grace noticed. Mothers always noticed the half-second before a lie. Annie glanced toward the door where Robert had been taken out. Mr. Langford tried to scare me. He said accusations like this follow people. Grace's jaw set. She turned to William. And he was your right hand? William's face showed the cut of that. Yes. Then maybe the problem wasn't that my daughter spoke too loudly. Maybe the problem was who had been standing close enough to whisper in your ear. Linda looked at Grace with open respect. William did not defend himself. I am beginning to understand that. Detective Brooks stepped in gently. Mrs. Carter, we'll need Annie for a full written statement. You may stay with her. She is not under arrest. She is not being treated as a suspect. She better not be, Grace said. For the first time all night, Annie almost laughed. It came out as a breath. Brooks's mouth twitched, but she stayed professional. Understood. Alan Reed approached William with his phone in hand. Sir, Daniel Cho sent confirmation that the transfer package has been preserved. He also found emails tied to Northline Strategic Services and 2 shell entities linked to Victor Hale's firm. Detectives will need everything. Brooks turned to Alan. Forward nothing casually. Preserve, export, under supervision, document, every step. Alan nodded. We will. William looked at Grace. Mrs. Carter, I know this is a great deal to hear all at once. Grace said, I've had long days before. The answer was plain. But Annie heard the years inside it. Double shifts, overdue bills, bus rides, school meetings, polite smiles from people who mistook exhaustion for weakness. William seemed to hear some of it too. I would like you and Annie to use my office while the detectives take her statement, he said. It's quieter. Grace looked at Detective Brooks, not William. Is that acceptable? Brooks nodded. Yes. I'll conduct the statement there. That small choice mattered. Grace had not asked the billionaire for permission. She had asked the officer in charge. Annie stood a little straighter. As they moved toward William's office, one of the senior managers, a woman named Diane Mercer, stepped into Annie's path. Her face was pale. Annie, she said, I was one of the people who thought security should remove you. Annie did not know what to say. Diane swallowed. I'm sorry. Annie nodded once. Thank you. Diane looked as if she wanted to say more, but Grace's presence stopped her from making the apology about herself. She stepped aside. Inside William's office, the noise of the conference room dimmed. Detective Brooks sat across from Annie and Grace. Recorder placed openly on the desk. Annie, Brooks said, we'll go slowly. If you need a break, say so. Grace kept one hand over Annie's. Tell it straight. Annie nodded. Before Brooks began, William appeared in the doorway, but did not enter. Mrs. Carter. Miss Carter. I won't interrupt. I only want to say this before the night carries us somewhere else. Grace waited. William looked at Annie. You had every reason to protect yourself tonight. You chose to protect someone who had not yet earned that from you. Annie's voice was quiet. You were a person in danger. William absorbed that as if it were a lesson he should have learned years ago. Grace looked at him and said, "That's how I raised her." William nodded. "It shows." Then he stepped back and closed the door, leaving Annie with her mother, the detective, and the truth that had nearly cost her everything before anyone called it brave. Detective Brooks pressed the recorder button and stated the time, date, location, and names in the room. Her voice was steady enough to slow Annie's breathing. "Annie Carter, you understand this is a voluntary statement?" "Yes, ma'am. You're here with your mother, Grace Carter." "Yes. And you understand you can ask for a break?" Annie nodded, then remembered the recorder. "Yes, ma'am." Grace sat beside her, one hand resting near Annie's but not holding it now. That was her way of saying, "I am here, but this is your voice." Brooks opened her notebook. "Tell me again what you heard in the storage room. But this time include exact words if you remember them." Annie looked at the edge of William's desk, then lifted her eyes. Mr. Langford said, "Once Harrington drops, I take interim control by morning." Victor Hale asked if the market would react fast enough. "Mr. Langford said grief makes boards obedient if the paperwork is already waiting." Brooks wrote that down. "Grief makes boards obedient?" "Yes, ma'am." Grace's face tightened, but she stayed silent. Annie continued. "Mr. Hale said something about discounted blocks. He said if the transfer happened before Monday, Calvert Dominion would control enough pressure to force a sale. I don't know all the financial terms, but that was the meaning." "You're doing fine," Brooks said. "What about the shirt?" Mr. Langford said he would create a reason for Mr. Harrington to change. He said red wine works because no one argues with a stain in a room full of cameras. Then he said the shirt was already placed in Mr. Harrington's private office. Brooks looked up. "He used the words already placed?" "Yes. That matters." Annie swallowed. Victor asked if the powder would show. Mr. Langford said not under normal light. He said, "When the room goes dark, he'll be the only thing worth seeing." Grace breathed out through her nose, slow and controlled. Brooks asked, "And the person with the badge?" Victor said the contractor would come through the service entrance after the lights were cut. Mr. Langford said 10 minutes was more than enough. Victor asked if the man knew where to strike. Mr. Langford said, "The neck is exposed if he's relaxed and laughing." Annie stopped. For the first time since the party, her stomach turned hard enough that she had to look away. Saying it in order made it worse. In the conference room, everything had been noise and movement. Here, behind William's closed office door, the plan sounded calm, patient, almost businesslike. Grace's hand covered hers. "Take a breath." Annie did. Brooks waited. She did not rush her, and Annie was grateful for that. When they left, Annie said, Mr. Langford hit the box with his elbow, and the bottle fell. I waited. Then I went in, got gloves from the utility station, picked up the bottle, and put it in a clear pouch. I kept it in my blazer pocket until I showed it to Mr. Harrington. Brooks nodded. "Why didn't you call police from the storage room?" Annie had expected that question. It still hurt. "Because I was scared," she said, "and because I didn't think anyone would believe me fast enough. I thought if I called and tried to explain, by the time anyone understood, the party would already be happening." Grace looked at the detective. "She is not wrong to think that." Brooks met her eyes. "I know." That simple answer shifted something in Grace's face. Not trust exactly, but the beginning of it. A knock came at the door. Brooks paused the recorder. "Come in." Officer Ramirez opened the door just enough to speak. "Detective, the garage suspect gave a name, Calvin Price. Likely false. He had a prepaid phone. Last 3 outgoing texts were to a number saved as RL. Brooks glanced at Annie, then at Grace. "We'll need to verify." She looked back at Ramirez. "Any response from Hale? Detectives are at his hotel. He checked out 30 minutes ago. Airport police have been notified." Brooks nodded. "Thank you." The door closed. Annie looked at her mother. "He's running?" Grace squeezed her hand once. "People who tell the truth don't have to run." Brooks turned the recorder back on. "Annie, after you returned upstairs, did Mr. Langford see you before the spill?" "Yes. He saw me near the side table. He asked if I had somewhere else to be." "Exact words?" He said, "Annie, isn't it? This is an executive evening. You can return to the reception area." Grace's eyes sharpened. He said Annie. Isn't it? Annie nodded. He knew my name. He was pretending not to. Brooks wrote that down too. What did you do? I stayed. I pretended to count napkins. Then the wine? Yes. Mr. Langford raised his glass and said, to the man who built all of this. Then he stepped wrong, or made it look that way. And the wine spilled on Mr. Harrington's vest and shirt. Did it look accidental? If I hadn't heard the plan, maybe. But he didn't look surprised fast enough. Brooks looked up. That's a good detail. He apologized right away, Annie said. Too quickly. Then he brought the white shirt from Mr. Harrington's office like he knew exactly where it was. And after Mr. Harrington changed, Mr. Langford touched him. Chest. Shoulder. He joked that Mr. Harrington looked younger, like a startup founder. People laughed. Then the lights announcement came. Brooks leaned back slightly. And at that point, you acted. I waited until I saw the mark, Annie said. The room was still bright at first, but I could see faint powder where his hand had been. I knew once the lights went out, it would get worse. I didn't want to tear his shirt. I didn't want everyone looking at me like that. But I saw the service door open. Her voice thinned. I saw the man come in. Grace's hand tightened. Annie pushed through. So I ran. Brooks stopped the recorder again, not because the statement was over, but because a firm knock struck the door twice. This time William opened it himself. He did not step inside. Detective, he said, I apologize for interrupting. Daniel Cho just found an email draft in Robert's archived files. It was scheduled to go out Monday morning to the board, citing my sudden medical emergency and recommending Robert as interim executive authority. Annie felt the room tilt without moving. Brooks stood. Was it sent? No, scheduled. Preserve the system exactly as is. Already done. Grace looked at William. So, my daughter was right about all of it. William's eyes moved to Annie, and there was no doubt left in them now. Yes, Mrs. Carter, he said quietly. She was. Grace's words stayed in the office after William answered her. So my daughter was right about all of it. Annie did not know why that sentence made her want to cry more than the fear had. Maybe because fear had kept her moving, while being believed gave her body permission to feel what had almost happened. She looked at her mother's hand over hers, then at Detective Brooks, then at William standing in the doorway like a man who had just opened a locked room inside his own life and found it filled with names he did not want to read. Detective Brooks closed her notebook. Mr. Harrington, we need that email draft preserved by a forensic technician. No screenshots passed around. No forwarding, unless directed. Your outside auditor should stop touching the file until our cyber unit gets a copy. William nodded. I'll tell him now. Also, Brooks said, we're going to need Mr. Langford's office secured. No assistants, no cleaning crew, no executives looking for personal items. Done. Grace looked at William. Was he the kind of man people were afraid to question? William paused. Yes. Then don't be surprised it took someone with nothing to lose in that room to say what others wouldn't. Annie turned to her. Mom. Grace did not look away from William. No. I mean it. Rooms like this don't get dangerous all at once. They get dangerous when everybody learns which truth costs too much to say. William accepted that without defense. You're right. Detective Brooks gave Grace a quick look, almost approving, then turned back to Annie. I have enough for this portion. We'll take a formal written statement downtown, or here with counsel present, depending on what the department decides. For tonight, I want you to stay available. Annie nodded. Am I allowed to go home? Brooks's answer was careful. Soon. But not until we know whether Victor Hale is in custody, and whether anyone else tied to this plan is still loose. Grace's shoulders tightened. You think Annie could be in danger? Brooks did not soften the truth. She is the witness who interrupted the plan. We won't ignore that. William stepped farther into the room. They can stay here, or I can arrange a secure hotel. Grace's chin lifted. We're not charity cases, Mr. Harrington. I did not mean it that way. I know what you meant. I also know how fast help from powerful people can start feeling like ownership. William looked as if the words struck somewhere old. Then let me say it differently. Mrs. Carter, your daughter became a target by saving my life inside my building. I have a responsibility to make sure both of you leave here safely tonight. You can choose how that happens. but I cannot pretend it isn't my responsibility." Grace studied him. She was not easily impressed. Annie knew that. She had met landlords with soft voices and hard leases, managers who smiled while cutting hours, school officials who praised Annie's potential while explaining why a fee waiver had been misplaced. Grace trusted actions after they had survived time. Finally, she said, "Police first, then we talk." "Fair," William said. A call came through Brooks's radio. She stepped toward the window and listened. Annie caught only pieces. "Airport unit, black SUV, Hale, Terminal Access Road." Brooks responded, then turned back. "Victor Hale has been stopped near O'Hare," she said. "Not formally booked yet, but he is in custody." Annie breathed out. Grace whispered, "Thank God." William's face hardened. "Did he have anything with him?" Brooks said, "Documents, 2 phones, and a passport. We'll know more after search warrants and processing." William gave a short nod, but his attention had shifted inward. The whole plot had formed around him, while he sat in meetings with the man who planned it. A shirt, placed in his private office. A false lighting order, a fake maintenance badge, a board email drafted before his body had even hit the carpet. It was not only attempted murder, it was rehearsal for a world without him. Linda knocked on the open door. "Sir, Detective Mason is ready to review Robert's office access. Also, Daniel Cho is on hold again. He says the scheduled board email isn't the only draft." William closed his eyes briefly. "What else?" Linda glanced at Annie and Grace, then back to him. "A press statement." The office went quiet. William's voice lowered. "Saying what?" Linda swallowed. "That you suffered an unexpected medical episode during a private company gathering, and that Mr. Langford would address leadership continuity." Grace shook her head once. "He wrote the story before he finished the sin." No one corrected her. William turned to Annie. "Did you hear them talk about a press statement?" "No, sir," Brooks said. "That means we're still uncovering parts of the plan." William looked at Linda. "Tell Daniel to preserve everything and stop digging until detectives direct him." Linda nodded and left. Annie rubbed her thumb against the side of her hand. "Detective Brooks?" "Yes. If I hadn't picked up the bottle, would anyone have believed me?" Brooks took a moment before answering. "Maybe eventually. Maybe not soon enough. Evidence gives truth a place to stand." Grace looked at Annie. "That's why you used gloves." Annie nodded, but her voice was small. "I was afraid I'd mess it up." "You didn't," Brooks said. "And understand something. What you did was brave, but bravery doesn't mean you should have had to carry it alone." That was the first sentence of the night that made Annie feel young. Not childish, not small, just young. 18. Old enough to act. Too young to have been left with a billionaire's life in her hands. William seemed to hear that too. "I failed to build a room where she could have spoken sooner," he said. Grace looked at him. "Then build one now." He nodded slowly. "I will." Brooks closed the recorder case and stood. "Mrs. Carter, Annie, I'm going to have an officer remain with you while we process the rest of the floor. Mr. Harrington, you need to come with me and Detective Mason to identify items in Robert Langford's office. Don't touch anything, just identify." William turned to Annie before leaving. "Miss Carter, when I come back, I would like to speak with you and your mother. Not as a chairman to an intern. As a man who owes you an honest conversation." Annie did not know what to say, so Grace answered for both of them. "We'll listen," she said, "but we won't be bought." William's mouth moved almost into a smile, though there was no joy in it. "I'm beginning to understand that too." He left with Detective Brooks. The door stayed open. From the conference room came low voices, camera clicks, the shuffle of evidence bags, the quiet machinery of consequences. Grace sat beside Annie and finally allowed herself to hold her daughter's hand fully. "You scared me tonight," she said. "I scared myself." Grace looked at the glass wall, beyond which men and women in expensive clothes now moved carefully around the truth Annie had dragged into the light. "Good," she said. "People who never scare themselves usually aren't doing anything hard." Annie leaned closer, not resting, just close enough to feel her mother's sleeve against her arm. After a while, Linda appeared again with 2 paper cups of coffee and a wrapped turkey sandwich from the break room vending cooler. "I didn't know if you'd eaten," she said. Grace accepted the sandwich. "Thank you." Linda looked at Annie. "I should have known your name before tonight." Annie was too tired to make that easy for her. "Yes, ma'am. You should have." Linda nodded. I will not forget it again. Grace opened the sandwich, split it in half, and handed one part to Annie. It was cold, plain, and probably overpriced, but Annie took it. Her hands had stopped shaking. Outside William's office, the company that had ignored her was learning to speak carefully around what she had seen. Inside, Annie ate beside her mother and waited for the next part of the truth to arrive. William returned 40 minutes later with Detective Brooks, Detective Mason, and Alan Reed. He had left the office looking like a man trying to understand a crime. He came back looking like a man who had recognized the hand that wrote it. Grace noticed first. "What did you find?" she asked. William stopped near the doorway. For a moment, the billionaire, the founder, the man whose name sat on the building, seemed unsure how to speak in front of the woman whose daughter had saved him. Detective Brooks answered for him. Enough to support a wider investigation: financial crimes, attempted homicide, conspiracy, possibly securities fraud. Mr. Langford's office had copies of transfer documents, draft board communications, and contact records tied to Victor Hale. Annie set down the half-eaten sandwich. So it was all real. Brooks looked at her. Yes. Grace turned to Annie and touched her shoulder. You knew that before they did. William heard the sentence and looked away for 1 second, not at the floor, not in shame alone, but toward the city lights beyond the glass, as if searching for the right place to put the weight of what he owed. Alan stepped inside with a folder pressed under one arm. Mr. Harrington, detectives will need your formal statement soon. The board has also been notified that there was an incident, without details. Daniel Cho is preserving the audit trail. Good, William said. Linda appeared behind them, carrying a fresh legal pad. She looked tired now. The kind of tired that made people honest. Sir, the remaining guests are waiting for instructions. Some want to leave. Some are afraid they'll be questioned if they go. Detective Mason said. They can leave after we record contact information and identify who witnessed relevant moments. No one deletes messages, photos, or video. Make that clear. Linda nodded. I will. William turned to her. Linda. Yes, sir. Before they leave, ask them to gather in the conference room. Alan's brow tightened. William, I'd advise against a speech. It won't be a speech. Anything you say could be repeated. William looked at Annie. Good. Grace studied him but said nothing. A few minutes later, the remaining employees stood in the conference room again. The music was off. The food had been cleared to one side but not removed, because the table was still part of the evening's record. The sealed evidence had been taken into police custody. The torn shirt was gone, but everyone remembered where it had been. Annie stood beside Grace near the doorway, not at the center. She preferred it that way. But William noticed and motioned gently. Miss Carter, would you and your mother stand here, please? Annie looked at Grace. Grace said quietly, stand where truth put you. So Annie stepped forward with her mother beside her. William faced the room. His pale blue shirt was wrinkled now. His hair was no longer neat. He looked less like a magazine cover, and more like a man who had lived through a night that would follow him. I won't keep anyone long, he said. The police will give instructions about statements, evidence, and privacy. You will follow them. You will not gossip about this. You will not post about this. You will not turn tonight into entertainment. No one moved. William continued, but before anyone leaves, there is something that needs to be said in this room, because this is the room where it failed to be said earlier. Annie felt her throat tighten. William turned slightly toward her. Annie Carter told the truth tonight. She told it while being mocked, doubted, and treated as if her position made her words less valuable. The room went still in a new way. She was right, William said. About the shirt, about the powder, about the lights, about the service entrance, about Robert Langford. She was right, while many of us were busy being comfortable with the idea that she must be wrong. Linda lowered her eyes. Paul Donnelly took off his glasses and held them in one hand. William's voice became quieter. That includes me. Annie did not know where to look. Grace's hand brushed hers, a small signal to stay steady. William continued. I am alive tonight because Annie acted before she was believed. That should trouble every person in this room, not only because of what almost happened to me, but because of what it says about us. A man from finance shifted his weight. Diane Mercer pressed her lips together. William looked around at them. Some of you did not know her name before tonight. Some of you knew it and chose not to use it. Some of you saw an intern and forgot there was a person standing there. I did too. more than once. That ends now. No one applauded. It was not that kind of moment. Detective Brooks stood near the door, watching. William looked at Annie again. Miss Carter, I cannot undo the way you were treated in the first moments after you saved my life. I cannot make those moments smaller than they were, but I can say clearly, in front of everyone here, that you did not attack me. You did not cause trouble. You prevented a crime. Annie's eyes burned, but she kept her chin level. Thank you, she said. It was all she could manage. Grace spoke then, calm but firm. My daughter did what she was raised to do. I hope this company learns to do the same. A few people looked at Grace with surprise. William did not. Yes, Mrs. Carter, he said. So do I. Detective Mason cleared his throat gently. Mr. Harrington, we need to proceed with statements. William nodded. Of course. The employees began moving in small, quiet lines toward the officers and legal staff. Some avoided Annie's eyes. Others met them briefly and looked ashamed. Diane Mercer approached again, this time stopping at a respectful distance from both Annie and Grace. I was wrong, Diane said. Not just tonight. Before tonight, too. Grace looked at her. Then be different after tonight. Diane nodded. I will try. Don't try for us, Grace said. Try for the next person nobody listens to. Diane had no answer, which may have been the most honest answer she had. Officer Ramirez came to the door. Detective Brooks. They've confirmed Hale is being transported. The garage suspect's phone has messages tied to the second device found on Langford. Robert's hidden phone. Annie remembered the way his face had changed when it was found. Brooks nodded. Good. Get those preserved. William heard and turned toward Allen. Make sure the board knows Robert is removed from all authority effective immediately. Already drafted, Allen said. Pending your approval. Send it after detectives clear the language. Yes, sir. Grace leaned closer to Annie. You holding up? Annie almost said yes out of habit. Instead, she said, barely. That's an honest answer. William approached them again, slower this time, as if he had learned not every offer should arrive like an order. Mrs. Carter, Miss Carter, Detective Brooks believes it would be wise for you not to go straight home until they finish initial arrests and confirm no one else is involved. I would like to arrange a secure place for tonight. You can refuse. You can choose the place. Police can be involved, but I'd like to help. Grace looked at Brooks. Is that your recommendation? Brooks nodded. For tonight, yes. Out of caution, Grace thought it over. One night. Somewhere police know. No cameras. No company people hovering. William nodded. Done. Annie looked at him. Sir? Yes? What happens to my internship? Grace gave her a look that said now, but William did not smile. He understood the question. For Annie, rent, tuition, references, and opportunity were not abstract matters. They were the fragile bridge she had been walking before the night exploded. Your internship is not ending because you told the truth, he said. Not tonight. Not ever. Annie nodded, but he continued. And when this investigation allows it, we will discuss what comes next. Properly. With your mother present if you want. With terms written down. No favors whispered in hallways. Grace gave a small nod at that. Written down mattered. Detective Brooks stepped toward them. We'll have an officer take you to a hotel, approved through our department list. Mr. Harrington's people can pay, but they don't manage it. Grace said, that works. For the first time that night, Annie felt the possibility of leaving the building. The thought was strange. The city outside had kept moving, while a murder plot unraveled in a conference room. Trains ran, diners served coffee. Somewhere, people complained about traffic, watched late news, called their families, went to bed without knowing how close one life had come to ending under office lights. As Annie and Grace prepared to leave with Officer Ramirez, William stood near the conference room door. Miss Carter, he said. Annie turned. You asked earlier what would have happened if you waited for permission, he said. I know the answer now. Annie waited. William's voice lowered. I would not be standing here. Grace touched Annie's back, guiding her toward the hall. Annie did not answer because there was nothing more to prove in that room. Not tonight. Not after the evidence, the arrests, the apology, and the silence of people who had finally run out of reasons not to believe her. She walked out beside her mother, past the locked elevators and the guards who now stepped aside for her, carrying only her phone, her coat, and the knowledge that truth had survived the room that tried to bury it. Officer Ramirez walked Annie and Grace through a side hallway instead of the main reception area. The party guests were still being questioned, and the elevators had been taken over by police and building security. The hallway felt different now. Earlier, Annie had moved through it as an intern, careful not to block anyone important. Now guards stepped aside and held doors open without being asked. That should have felt good. It did not, Grace noticed. Keep walking, baby. I am. No, you're thinking. Annie glanced at her mother. How can you tell? Because you walk slower when your mind is trying to outrun your feet. Officer Ramirez gave a small smile but kept her eyes on the corridor ahead. At the service elevator, Annie looked back once. Through the glass wall at the end of the hall, she could still see part of the conference room. Detectives moved around the table. Linda was speaking to Alan Reed. William stood alone near the doorway, one hand on his phone, no longer surrounded by people waiting to please him. For a moment, he looked less powerful than tired. The elevator doors opened. Grace stepped in first, then Annie. Ramirez pressed the garage level. The ride down was quiet except for the hum of the elevator and the soft crackle of the officer's radio. Annie finally said, "Mom, did I ruin my life?" Grace turned to her. "No, you don't know that. I know enough. What if people say I attacked him? People say many things when the truth embarrasses them." Annie looked at the metal doors. He was standing there with no shirt. Everyone saw. Grace's voice stayed calm. "And he is alive to be embarrassed." Officer Ramirez looked over. "Your mother is right." Grace nodded once, accepting the support without needing it. In the garage, a patrol car waited near the private exit. Chicago's cold night air rushed in when the door opened. Annie pulled her coat tighter. Her hands still smelled faintly of office soap and the plastic pouch she had held too long. As they got into the back of the patrol car, Grace leaned close. "Listen to me. Shame is a tool people use when they can't defeat the truth. Don't pick it up for them." Annie held that sentence while the car pulled out of the garage. The hotel was only 15 minutes away. One of those business hotels near the river where the lobby had quiet lighting, framed city photographs, and a man at the desk who straightened when he saw the officer. Ramirez handled the arrangements without mentioning details. Williams' company paid, but the room was listed through a police-approved security note. Grace insisted on reading the registration before signing anything. Annie stood beside her, too tired to be embarrassed. Upstairs, the room had 2 queen beds, a desk, a coffee maker, and a view of another building. Grace checked the lock, the connecting door, the curtains, and the hallway through the peephole. Only then did she take off her coat. Annie sat on the edge of one bed. "I'm not going to sleep." "Probably not," Grace said. "But you're going to rest." "I keep hearing the shirt rip." Grace sat beside her. "I keep hearing you say the police were there." Annie leaned against her mother's shoulder. She had held herself together in front of William, Linda, detectives, executives, guards, and people who had once forgotten her name. Now, in a quiet hotel room with her mother beside her, the strength left her all at once. She cried without making much sound. Grace let her. After a while, Annie whispered, "I was so scared. I know. I thought he was going to die. I know. I thought nobody would believe me." Grace stroked the back of her hand. "That part I know too well." Annie looked at her. "Did you ever stop telling the truth because people wouldn't listen?" Grace took time before answering. "Yes." Annie was surprised. "You?" Grace gave a tired smile. "I'm your mother, not a statue." "What happened?" "Years ago, in an office where I worked, a supervisor was changing hours on people's timesheets. Mostly women who needed the job too badly to complain. I spoke up once. They told me it was a misunderstanding. I spoke up again. My hours got cut. After that, I learned to survive quietly for a while." Annie listened. Grace continued, "I'm not proud of every silence I kept, but I raised you hoping you'd know the difference between silence that protects your spirit and silence that protects